I swear to God, when I used to pour a glass of wine on a Tuesday, bearing in mind, I'm a 32-year-old adult. When I poured a glass of wine on a Tuesday and I'd sit on my sofa watching TV, drinking wine because it was a Tuesday, his voice would be in my head. And it would be like, oh, we don't midweek drink. It says who? We do midweek drink because we're living by ourselves. We're an adult, and I like rosé on a Tuesday, you know? Hello guys, and welcome back to another episode of Coming Up for Air with myself, Lou. I hope we're all okay. As you can see, the UK is having what can only be described as a gorgeous heat wave. It's so sunny, which made me laugh yesterday because I went out for a run and it was so funny. I rang my sister before I went out for a run. I had a really long day yesterday and I got back to my house at like 5:30, and in my garden there is a huge tree. And from like 4 till about, no, I'd say probably about 4:30 till about 5:15, the tree blocks the sun out of my garden. I'm trying to get it trimmed. It belongs to the school. I don't really know, but I'm trying to get it trimmed. Anyway, it blocks the sun temporarily out of my garden and then it appears again. But when I came back to my house last night, I was like, oh, it's not that hot because there was like loads of shade in my garden. So I thought, do you know what? I'm going to clear my head, go out for a run. And I rang my sister, and I'll ring my sister if I need company on a run. So I called her and I was like, hey, what are you doing? She was like panting down the phone. She was like, I'm out running. She went, it's so hot. And she was like, I'm in the woods. And I was like, oh, I don't think it's that warm. And she was like, honestly, Lou, it's really hot. So I was like, do I wait or do I go out? And I thought, nah, this is the girl that wants to live in Ibiza. Let's go out. So put my running stuff on, went out for a run. Oh my God, it was so hot. And I chose a route that had no shade, like absolutely no shade. Not one scrap of shade was on this route. So I was like running and the sun was directly hitting my face. Great. So yeah, she was like, oh, I'll call you when I've done my run. And honestly, I got back here and I think, yes, I want to live in a hotter climate. And I was thinking, oh my God, how on earth am I going to live in a hot climate and run if this is how I feel? And then I thought, you know, people in hotter climates, they get out in the morning, early doors, because the weather's always nice. Like this morning, I mean, I woke up at 5:45. If I could have got out for a run at 5:45, I would have done because the sun's already up. It's shining. It's a gorgeous, gorgeous morning to go for a run. And I would have done that. And I think when I've been in Ibiza, I have got up early and I have got out before the heat, like, you know, comes in. And when I go out for a run in the UK, I do imagine myself like running down like the strip. If you've been to Ibiza and you've been to San Antonio, you'll know where Ocean Beach is. You might not know this, but Ocean Beach backs on to like a promenade where there's like a really nice beach and some amazing sunsets. And you can run down it. It's like, I think it's about 7 miles long because you can run down it, get to a certain point and run back and do like as many miles as you want. So you can run for 2 miles, run back for 2 miles. It's just this long stretch, basically. It's so fun running down there in the morning because you see groups of people that are just going in, and I think fair play. That's why people always say when they go to Ibiza, you see the sunset and the sunrise because you can stay in nightclubs and then the sun rises when you're walking home. Anyway, so I always imagine that I'm like running in Ibiza when the weather's like this. But yeah, yesterday was hilarious. But obviously not a lot of people have air conditioning in their house, so you come back to like a house that is red bloody hot. I used to convince myself that I was a winter runner, and because I used to get up so early, and this kind of links in with what I wanted to talk about today, because I used to get up super early because my ex used to get up super early. So I had like habits and routines because my ex used to get up really early. So I used to get up and convince myself in the winter that I was a winter runner, and you know, I loved running in cooler climates. And I actually don't. I prefer running in the heat. And even when I went out, like yesterday, there was a big hill and I stopped and walked, and I don't ever penalize myself for that. And because running in the heat is really difficult. I really underestimated how hot I actually was yesterday. And my parents came round actually before I went out for a run. My mum was a little bit like, "You going for a run?" I was like, "Yeah." She was like, "Oh, all right." And like, I thought you would have waited till like the evening. And I was like, "No, I've got far too much to do. I can't wait for the evening." But I think she was probably like wanted to say like, "It's a bit warm," but she never did. She probably knew that the answer would be, "Oh, I'll be absolutely fine." So, which I was, and I do really enjoy it. But yeah, it was very, very warm last night. I came back and I opened my French doors and I sat there and I thought, and if you follow me on my Instagram, you'd have seen that I put up a picture on Thursday evening, like, this is a girl that wants to live in a hot climate. But again, it's just different, isn't it? Because you come back to air conditioning and, well, a lot of the places that I've stayed in Ibiza have had like air conditioning. So my sister called me when she'd been for her run and she was like, "Oh my God, I can't cool down. I'm so red." And I was like, "I will cook dinner. I will leave dinner like cooking. I'll do loads of stuff just while I'm cooling down. I don't immediately get into a cold shower because I think the minute that you get out, you're sweating again. So I kind of let my like temperature cool down and then I jump in the shower." It was funny because I think, I say all these things and you know what I'm like. If you've been here for a while, I speak things into existence. I'm always talking about my move to Ibiza. I want to speak it into the universe. I want to speak it into existence because I know that it's going to happen. And, I always talk about my vision board that is sat there and it's just full of pictures of like the place where I want to live in Ibiza, the actual place as in like the apartments that I want to live in. In fact, I'll get it. For everyone that is watching this on YouTube, this is the promenade in Ibiza. This is the prom. This is the beach. These are the palm trees. It's lined with palm trees and you can run down there. So that's what I envision basically. And that's why I have a vision board, because all of these things are on there and I can see them every single day and it makes doing this completely worth it. So yeah, last night was funny because I thought, oh my God, this is going to be my reality. At some point I'm going to be running in 25-degree heat. But also really random, I was doing the dishwasher when I came back and I thought this would be such a good podcast episode to do because certain things that I still do are still from habits of my ex, that have come from my ex. And certain thoughts and beliefs as well. I'm not talking about like religious beliefs. I'm talking about like just certain beliefs that I had. And I was thinking to myself, I was like, God, I had loads of those because I met him when I was 14 and we grew up together. We did all the milestones together, absolutely everything. The only two things that, we didn't do as a couple was get married and have children. Everything else we did. And that was like, going through being 16, 17, learning to drive, turning 18, turning 21, first lads holiday, first girls holiday, going abroad together. All of our firsts were done together. And a lot of beliefs and habits can come up out of that. And when you go through a breakup, it's quite hard to let them go. And I always like talking on things that I don't tend to see people talking about in the breakup hemisphere. And as always, I'll mention, my Patreon. And if you're not a member over on my Patreon, number one, why? Because you get 2 extra episodes a week or 1 long episode a week additional to this. And I talk about everything over there. And last week I was talking about sex because I love a controversial subject. I also like dipping into subjects that people don't really talk about. And on the whole, sex is quite a taboo subject. And I think like even as humans and as Brits, we don't talk about it. It's weird. Like if there's a sex scene that comes on the TV, we're all a bit like, oh, it's embarrassing. I was very lucky because I grew up in a household where that wasn't a thing. My parents were very affectionate. They held hands and they kissed a lot and they said, love you a lot. I was brought up in an environment where, it wasn't a taboo subject. You're allowed to be outwardly loving. And I was very fortunate about that because a lot of my friends grew up in a household where they would have to keep the fact that they're going on the pill from their mum and certain stuff like that. And I remember one of my best friends from high school, she could never tell her mum that she was on the injection. And I just thought it was weird because I was put on the pill because I had really bad skin. So I was actually on the pill before I met my ex. And then my mum took me to the doctor to learn about how important it was to take the pill. Now I was in a relationship. And, you know, we went away for my 16th birthday. It was all very obvious that we were sleeping together after my 16th. So, yeah, I grew up in a house where I know that if I had any issues, even like with periods and stuff, like I could go to my mum, and maybe not my sisters. My sisters were like my second mum. My eldest sister was like my second mum growing up. Maybe I didn't go to them, but I was very lucky that I had a mum that would just openly talk about it with me. And, you know, I don't ever remember like the sex talk being embarrassing with my mum. She just laid it all out and said, you know, this is this, this is this, this is what happens. And it was kind of like, oh, I kind of knew that because, you know, you watch TV. I had older sisters. We shared a bedroom. I had to see it on the TV and stuff. But I was very fortunate in the fact that sex wasn't a taboo subject in my household. And so I felt really comfortable doing the episode last week and sharing my experiences about sex post breakup. And I don't mean just with an ex. I mean like the sexual urges that you have, you know, convincing yourself that you need it because you've had it for, in my case, 14 or however many years, like 12 years. And I think it is a subject that, again, not many people talk about because it is kind of like a personal subject, which is why it's over on my Patreon, but also like a taboo subject. And it just doesn't need to be because I think everybody kind of has the same sort of opinion surrounding sex. And I've spoken to a lot of people on my Patreon since that episode that have been like, oh my God, Lou, thank you so much for addressing that, because you do feel a bit ashamed and a bit embarrassed that, you know, you're going through this heartbreak and then all of a sudden your human urges will kick in and you'll be like, oh my God, I can't have sex. I've got no one to have sex with. And then you go through this sort of like phase of, do I need to have casual sex? And I've never been a casual sex person because I've been in a relationship for 14 years of my life. How do I have casual sex? Who do I have casual sex with? And so like I've done like a full breakdown of what I went through. It's like full circle of like where I am now and how I was feeling about sex and how it makes me feel now. And hopefully, while I've had a lot of positive feedback, hopefully that might make you want to go over there, sign up, have a little bit of a peruse over there, see what you find, see what you fancy. Because like I said, and I remember somebody messaging me on there and she said, you had me at the price of a coffee. I give you 2 extra episodes a month, which is 8 across. I give you 2 extra episodes a week, which is 8 across the whole month. If they are 2 shorter episodes, 1 obviously if they're longer, I give you that for a price of a coffee, just 1 of your coffees. And I mean, I've looked at the time this morning. I'm recording very early because I've got a lot of things to do today. I'm after this going to go for a walk to Costa. I've got the menu up. I've picked my Costa. I'm going to probably go and spend £6 on a nice drink and something after my walk, and that will be the same price as what you pay for getting 2 extra additional episodes. So if you are really struggling and you want to hear me talk about sex, you want to hear me talk about, you know, my money, you want to hear me talking about marriage, you want to hear me talking about panic attacks, anxiety, things like that, personal subjects that I don't like to go into much detail on my free episodes, then head over to my Patreon. You can find my links through absolutely everything. And if you still can't find them, DM me. I went through all of my DMs last night. If you're listening to this and thinking, hold on a second, Lou, I DM'd you and you've not replied, please message me again. I had 117 messages in my requests on my Instagram. I have so many to get through on TikTok today. I have comments, I have like shares to reply to, I have emails. This was something that I sat and did last night. I have a lot of brands reach out to me and I'm obviously very grateful for that. I'm grateful that brands find me. I'm grateful that people think that I'm a good suit to represent their brand. However, I know I've said before, I've said in the past, you know, it's not how I want my Instagram to be. I don't want to be advertising loads and loads of brands. I don't want to be one of those influencers that just advertises anything just for a quick quid. That's not how I wanted to do my Instagram. I've grown my Instagram over 4 years. There's been ups and downs. I've lost followers, I've gained followers. I'm gaining quite a few followers at the moment. I would hate for somebody to come over to my Instagram because they want help, they're going through a breakup, and then every single one of my stories be like a coffee supplement or a gel or something like a electrolyte brand, or it's just not something I want to do. I will only ever work with brands that I fully 100% truly believe in. Obviously, I shared the news of the week that Lululemon have got in contact with me. And yes, that is a brand that I'm going to work with, because the only reason why I think they wanted to work with me is because I live in their leggings. I wear their leggings. Their leggings are 10 out of 10, would recommend, 0 notes. Yes, I know they're over £100. They're not something that I buy weekly. I still own a pair of Lulu leggings that I have had since 2019. They are one of the greatest investments ever. And when people say like, where are your leggings from? I'm always like Lululemon, and I see people's faces go like they are steep, and it is £100. But I mean, you buy a pair from New Look or Primark, and I mean, I've got pairs from Zara. You put them in the washing machine once and they lose their elasticity, they lose their shape. And I really look after my Lululemon ones because they're £100. So I'm not putting them in the tumble dryer, and I'm not putting fabric conditioner in when I wash them. But they've lasted since 2019, and they are so black as well. Like, and if you are a leggings girly, you will know the annoyance of putting on a black pair of leggings with a black top and them being two different blacks. It's so annoying. Or they look navy in certain lights. So annoying. So Lululemon have always been a staple in my wardrobe. So when they reached out to me and said, hey, do you want to work together? And they were very generous. And I have a lot of stuff coming, and I was able to pick what I wanted, and which was really great because my running belt snapped. I was fuming. My running belt snapped. And then when I was looking on the accessories, because I wanted to have a look to see if I could get like a new tote bag, which I decided against because they also have big 4-litre makeup bags. So I've got a new makeup bag. Not that I'd use it for makeup, but like traveling wise, for my shower gels, my shampoos. I'm using one from Primark at the moment, which has served me so well. But I just think if I've got the opportunity to have a nice big 4-litre shower wash bag thing, and it's going to be with a brand that I love, then I'm going to buy one. So I got that. But my running belt snapped. I was so annoyed because they've got like a bright pink one in the same colour as a couple of the sports bras that I've bought, and they'd all sold out. And I was like, no. So I've gone with the black one. So you probably see that on my Instagram. If you follow me on my Instagram, you'll see that. I'm not going to be doing like a haul as such. I'm just going to wear the pieces, and I'll just tag Lululemon in the pieces. That's how they want to work with me, which has been really great. However, these brands do land in my inbox, and I like to reply to everybody. So the brands that I know have come from a genuine like marketing person or their influencer program, I do like to email back and just say, hey, thank you so much for the opportunity, but I'm not willing to work with brands that, one, like coffee companies, I can't because I'm allergic to caffeine, and two, something that I haven't tried for more than 6 months. I don't want to be advertising, something that I've just started over 2 weeks to then say, hey, oh my God, this is so amazing. I just don't believe in it. And people's pages like that do annoy me. I know everyone has to make money, but they do annoy me because I think, oh, you've been sent that and you've used it for 2 weeks. Everyone knows that it kind of takes like a month for like a supplement to get into your system. I would absolutely love to work with JS Health. I live, eat, breathe their supplements. I take their detox and debloat. I take their hair, skin and nails, and I take their PMS support as well. I've continued to take their PMS support because I used to have a copper coil. I've had to have that removed now because of the operations that I had to have last year. But my God, their PMS support, it's amazing when you've got a copper coil, because everybody knows if you've got a copper IUD, you'll know, my God, your period pains are so bad. And it made my period pain so much better. And now I've had it taken out, I don't even know that I'm on my period. It's wild. I would absolutely love to work with like a brand like that, because I've been taking them for 2 years now. So I know that they work, and there's something that I say to people all the time. Oh my God, I take this supplement and it really works. And I've got all my friends on them as well. So I do have to sit and I do have to go through my emails as well. It takes a long time. But I absolutely love it. And I love all the opportunities that come into my doorstep. I sometimes actually miss opportunities because they go into my junk. So I have to check all my junks as well. And yeah, crazy. Anyway, today, like I said, I wanted to talk about breaking up with the habits, the thoughts, the beliefs you might have, because it's a thought, a habit, and a belief that you created either with your ex, or it's a thought and a habit and a belief that your ex had about something that you've taken on. The reason why this made me laugh and the reason why I came up with it is because I was unloading the dishwasher the other day and half the stuff hadn't washed. I was so annoyed. My dishwasher has been a loyal dishwasher since I moved into my old house. So I've had it since 2019. It came from a burnt out factory. Bear with me. When I used to work for the demolition firm, when we took on a factory, it was full of white goods and they were all preserved. They were all in film. Nothing was damaged. So I got a fridge, a washing machine and a dishwasher for complete free, because there was thousands and thousands and thousands of these white goods that then the company sold. And it's been loyal to me ever since. It owes me nothing. And sometimes it washes really good and sometimes it washes really strange. And you're probably sat here thinking, Lou, why the hell are you talking about dishwashers? My ex used to tell me that I could not load a dishwasher. Like, I just couldn't do it. And that became like a belief of mine, that I couldn't load the dishwasher. And it wasn't the fact that I couldn't load the dishwasher. I just couldn't be bothered to do it correctly. And he had a little bit of OCD, so everything was always like done in a good way. And I was unloading the dishwasher the other day and it made me laugh because it didn't wash properly. The cups had like turned up and the dishwasher water had got stuck in the cups. So annoying. And it made me laugh because that is a belief that I still believe. And I kind of back up that belief because I cannot load a dishwasher. But I think if I took my time to load the dishwasher, maybe I could do it. But it's just a belief like that when I'm doing the dishwasher, his voice is in my head. And it's like, you cannot load the dishwasher. He had 2 jobs. It was to load the dishwasher and put the bins out. Honestly, putting the bins out is my worst job in the whole entire world. I absolutely hate it. If I could apply for assisted bin help from the council, like the elderly have, I absolutely would. 100%. I hate putting the bins out. I don't know why. But he had 2 jobs and they were his 2 jobs, put the bins out and do the dishwasher. But it was funny because his voice was like ringing in my ears, like, haha, you can't do the dishwasher. I couldn't and I can't. And again, is it a belief that I can, kind of come out of? Is it a belief that will go away? Will I ever get good at loading the dishwasher? Who knows? But there are certain things like that on that sort of trivial end of the scale that you believe. And I think there are 2 things here. I think it's like habits and things that you do that your ex used to do, or like just routines that you and your ex used to do, and it's things that you have to get out of the habit of doing. And then on the flip side, there's like the beliefs section. I'm not talking about, like I said, I'm not talking about religious beliefs or anything like that, but like the thoughts and beliefs that you have, maybe about something, maybe about, yourself, that can still really impact you because you've been with somebody for such a long time. And I always say that certain things like, I've had a laugh about the dishwasher, but his voice is in my head. I can hear him laughing, like, you cannot load the dishwasher. I remember going to his best friend's house at Christmas and his best friend's girlfriend being like, oh, I stay away from the dishwasher because I can't load it. And it was like this running joke that like none of the girlfriends could load the dishwasher. And I became like the butt of a lot of jokes because I was this homemaker that couldn't load the dishwasher, which I didn't mind. There were some jokes that I didn't like being the butt of, but that joke I was like, I physically can't. Anyway, So that's what I'm going to talk about today. I'm going to split it down into the habits and obviously like the practical things that you do day to day and how, might influence them. I'm going to talk to you about how to get out of those sorts of things. I'm going to talk to you about the beliefs and hearing their voice in your head and how to get to grips with that as well, because it is really annoying. And I still, to this day, have habits and beliefs that I know I need to come out of, that I know are instilled in me because of my ex. And not just because of my ex, because of what we used to do and what we decided on as a couple as well. So yeah, without further ado, guys, let's get into it. So I think I'm going to start with the fact that sometimes you will not even know that you are doing this. And it's funny because I'm known for the fact that I don't sleep. I do, but my friends are convinced that I don't, because I'll send a text at 11 and then I'll send a text at 6 a.m. And they're like, when do you sleep? And I was always an early starter, always, because I had to be. My ex used to get up at 5:30 every day, and I would be up, like I said, I was like a homemaker. I'd be up making his lunch, making him breakfast, having breakfast with him. As a lot of the time, because of the business, compromised a lot of his time. The morning was the only time that I would actually get to speak to him, when his phone wasn't ringing off the hook, or we weren't talking about business. We weren't talking about weekend plans or something like that. We were actually just very quietly in our own home having a nice morning breakfast together. Sometimes I didn't wake up. I'll admit it. I'd make his lunch the night before and I'd think, do you know what? I'm not getting up at 5:30 tomorrow because I don't need to. But I was able to do that because my life wasn't so full on. I was working at home. I was working for him. I didn't really have like the pressures and things making me tired that I do now. I'm a workaholic. So I've always been an early riser. I was convinced that I was a winter runner because I don't know why. I was a winter runner and I'd get out in the mornings in the winter and I would preach on my Instagram about being a winter runner. I was a winter runner, hated running in the summer. I've like completely switched that now. I'd rather get in the gym in the winter and do a run and then get out in the sun in the summer. That is how I like to run. I'm a summer runner. And I don't know where that's come from. I don't know where that belief came from. I'm unsure whether it was instilled in me because of my ex or whether it was just a decision that I made. I don't know. But that is a belief that has changed. And I now know that I am a summer runner. That is just me. And that is something that has changed. I'm still an early riser. I still get up really early. But I'm still an early riser and I still get up early in the summer, obviously, to get out for the runs. But in the winter, I'm not getting up at the crack of dawn going out for a run. No one needs that when it's cold, wet, dark. I don't do that anymore because I don't feel the need to have to, get up really, really early and make something out of my morning. And I think because I was watching my ex be really on the ball and on the go in the morning, I felt like I had to be that person as well. So I would all year round be this person that was getting up at the crack of dawn, working out at, 6 a.m., going for a walk, going for a run. When now in the winter, you will not catch me getting out of bed any much earlier than 7 o'clock. I'm definitely one of those people that likes to be wrapped up in my quilt and stay in bed for an extra hour and a half, then get out the crack of dawn and go running in the dark and the cold and the rain. It's just not something that, I want to do. But sometimes you don't know you're doing it. You don't realize you're doing it. And one of the things that my ex had a huge belief in is that he didn't watch TV. He never had time. He was always doing something. Something was always being done. There was always something to be done. There was the gym, there was the jet skis, there was going paddleboarding, there was the business, there was quoting, there was pricing. There was always something to be done in the evenings. What we didn't do is we didn't sit and watch TV. We didn't sit and watch films. I cannot remember the last time I sat down and watched a film with him. During COVID, we watched The Money Heist. That's the only series that we watched together in the whole of our relationship. We only watched one series together. And I was made to believe that sitting and watching series was unproductive. It was a bad use of our time. We could have been doing something else. And all I ever really wanted on a Sunday night was to sit and watch a film together. And he just had no interest in it. And it was really instilled in me that watching TV, watching films, watching series was a waste of time. And that isn't a bad thing because, we were really productive. But when I went through the breakup, I would sit and feel guilty, even though we didn't live together, even though it wasn't part of my life anymore. I would sit and I would watch series and I would watch TV and I'd think, this is a waste of time. And I remember when I met the guy that I was in a situationship with towards the end of the year, I remember saying to him, he was like reeling off all these actors and these series that he had watched. And I remember saying to him, I don't watch TV because I haven't got time. When the truth is, it was just me. I had loads of time. I had loads and loads of time to sit and watch TV. And I got into watching Dragon's Den. So weird, because when I think back, Dragon's Den and Love Island practically got me through my breakup. I'd watch Dragon's Den every night. And even when I was sitting down and eating, I was like, oh my God, am I wasting time? When actually, to think about it, to break it down, I would eat with somebody else every night. So I wouldn't have the need to put the TV on. But because I lived by myself and, I was going through a period of huge change, the fact that I felt guilty for watching TV was wild. But that's how much of a belief that was instilled in me. And we don't watch TV, we don't have time. Because we were always off doing something. We were always gallivanting doing something. There was absolutely zero chill in our relationship. We were always the busiest people in the world. And that has now changed massively. And I do not feel guilty for watching films. When I have people round to mine after a night out, we put on films. That's what we do. And we just sit round and talk. We don't have the music on really loud. We're not clarting around, partying. In my old house we were, because we were able to, because it was a detached house. I had an island unit big enough to play beer pong on. And that's what we did. We just came back to my old house and we carried on partying. But we'd come back earlier knowing that we could party on until the early hours. Now when we leave certain places and it's the early hours, we just get back and we've got this as a group, we'll put on Shrek. And it was so funny. We put on Shrek the other night and one of my friends left and he turned around and he saw it on the TV and he was like, guys, why are you watching Shrek without me? And we were like, sorry, press. You said you needed to go. You need to be up early. We're going to watch Shrek. Yeah, that was a belief and a habit of mine that I had to really let go of, because it was hold on a sec. You live by yourself. Your time is your time now. And if you want to watch TV, that isn't a bad thing. But I still feel to this day when I'm sat on the sofa that I'm wasting time, which is just wild. And obviously, like I said, I was going to do practical advice for how to sort of deal with feeling like this. And so the first thing I want you to do is, and I've written down 3 things, I want you to take 5 minutes just to ask yourself, what do you believe about yourself now? Which of those beliefs actually feel good, or are they anxiety in disguise? And the biggest one, where did that belief come from? And trace it back and think, is that a belief that I truly from the heart believe? Do I think that sitting watching TV is a waste of time? No. I think sitting watching TV is a great time to wind down after a day. And this isn't about blaming your ex. We're not blaming our exes here for having these certain thoughts and beliefs. It's just being honest about what you have absorbed and then whether you want to keep it or not. Like I said, this dishwasher, I'm not very good at loading a dishwasher. But the TV thing and watching series and watching films, it was almost like he used to gloat, I don't watch films. And I will honestly say, I don't really enjoy films. I don't enjoy sitting there in the cinema. I hate the cinema because I can't get up and pause it and walk around, get snacks. I can't do my own thing. I have to sit there for 3 hours and watch a film. But I think the last film I went to go and watch was Wicked, and it just went on and on and on and on. And I was like, oh my God, I'm really not enjoying this. I just want to get up and pause it and come back to it when I've got more, when my attention span resets. But I like a series. I love 24 Hours in Police Custody. I love all of that things, you know, like Love Island, Love is Blind, and all of those. I will sit and watch back to back. I've literally watched Olivia Atwood's documentaries in days before. So I have changed my belief around that, and it has come from my ex, and I'm not blaming him. It's not a bad belief, but it's something that I don't need to believe anymore because we're not together. So I can form my own beliefs around that. And I think along with this and how you think and what you do and how you feel is because, like I've said, you know, I can still hear his voice in my head saying, I can't load a dishwasher. That voice isn't yours. You have to drone out the voice because the voice isn't yours, it's theirs. And you're no longer a part of their life and they're no longer a part of your life. So you can create your own habits and your own beliefs. And I really struggle with this, with things like when I'm hungover at the weekends, I used to always think like, oh, my ex would say, God, what a waste of time. We could have been doing X, Y, and Z. And the X, Y, and Z used to be, we could have been out on the jet skis. We could have been going for a walk. We could have been at a lake doing something. We could have been down in Nuki at the beach. The X, Y, and Z was always, we could have been doing one of my hobbies. And yes, I didn't have all those hobbies. And yes, I really enjoyed doing it. But when I actually break that down and I think about the voice in my head or thought about the voice in my head, I mean, it doesn't even pop into my head when I'm hungover now, but it used to. When I'd been out on, you know, day drinking in the day, I'd think, oh God, is this a waste of my time? Could I have been? Could I have been doing something better? Could I have been doing something more useful with my time? And when I break it down, the answer is no, because those were not my hobbies. I followed him around. On my weekends, sometimes I was left on the beach whilst he was off with his friends. And I thought that was normal. And it's not. It is not normal. Like, yes, you're supposed to get involved in like each other's hobbies, but I hadn't realized how much of my time was taken up doing things that he wanted to do because his hobbies looked like, you know, jet skiing. Everyone wants to go on a jet ski. Everyone wants to go on a paddleboard, you know, like everyone wants to do stuff like that. They weren't my hobbies. I was just taken along and he was being able to spend his weekends how he wanted to, but was always like, oh yeah, but you're coming as well. And it was like, yeah, and could I have got out on the jet skis? Could I have got out on the paddleboards? Yeah, but I had no interest in doing that. And part of me always thinks like, that is something that I will never do in a new relationship. Like, I want my partner to have, you know, hobbies and do stuff by themselves. I make people laugh when I say I don't want my new partner to be a runner because that's my hobby. You know, I'd like him to be able to run a 5K so we can do like short runs together. But I don't want him signed up for marathons. That's my thing to gloat about. And that's my thing to have. And that's my personality. But of course, you go and support each other in a couple of weekends watching him surf and doing all the rest of it. But I used to do it every weekend because in the summer, that was how we spent our weekends. And I hadn't broken it down until my therapist said to me, yes, but what did you want to do? And I'd be like, oh, I want to go on like a walk and go out and get breakfast and, you know, just go off and go and look around all the shops and stuff. Did you used to do that? No. Well, yes, you were doing things and it was like your favorite place and going to Nuki and stuff. But did you actually do anything that you wanted to do there? Not really. Did he try the stuff that you wanted to do? No. I sat on the beach, which I was more than happy to do, and watched the waves until there was a good swell, I want to say, or a good, you know, a good wave coming in. And then it was heightened about how much like I didn't want to get involved in what his hobby was. And that always was kind of like a bit of a bone of contention with us, whereas like I was saying to him, I'm more than happy to sit on the beach. I'm more than happy to sit here and do this. I just don't want to get involved. And the more that kind of conversation came up, it was the more that it was like, because I'm not interested in it. But I like being in the places that we're in. And so it's really hard because you go to war with yourself, because I don't ever regret anything that we did. And I was always so grateful that we did the things that we did. But actually breaking it down, they were more his hobbies. And it was almost like his beliefs that we had to be doing something at the weekend. We couldn't possibly just take a really slow Sunday, walk and go and get breakfast together.
and then walk and go and see my parents and just have like a slow Sunday. It always had to be like go, 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 go. And so sometimes you have to numb the voice out and you have to think like, this is my life.
So you almost have to catch the voice. And it is something that is so hard to do, because especially if the voice is saying stuff like you're not worthy, or like you better not get your hopes up, or like if they're nasty thoughts, which I never used to really battle with because my ex wasn't nasty to me. What I didn't realize was like certain things that were going on in my relationship and our relationship were just stuff because we had been together when we were so young. We had picked up like habits and beliefs and stuff that actually were okay to change as adults, but they just didn't in his world and they did in mine. If that voice is not yours, catch it and just say like, hold on a second, this is not my voice. And it is hard because you're like, do I believe that? Do I think that's a thing? And you have to catch it and you have to remind yourself like, this isn't the voice of me. This is the voice of my ex. And you don't have to be dramatic about it, but you have to call it out and think like, nope, absolutely not. This is old programming. This is old me. This is an old thing that I used to have to be able to believe because I was in a relationship with somebody, and it was easier to believe that than go against it. And I know that there'll be people listening where they were in a relationship where it was like their way or the highway, and it's old programming, and it does take time because you have to unlearn things and unlearn old habits and unlearn certain beliefs. And you can choose a replacement where you can actually say like, actually no, do you know what, this is how I'm going to live my life, and actually, do you know what, I'm allowed to take up space, and I'm allowed to want that, and I'm allowed to want reassurance, and I'm allowed to want love. And that is something that I have kind of like come up against recently. Like, I'm unapologetically me, and within that I do not feel embarrassed saying to somebody, I need reassurance. And it's come up quite a few times recently where I don't need somebody to be on me all the time. I don't need somebody to suffocate me. I just need that reassurance because it's something that I never really had in my old relationship. It was kind of like, well, he must love me because we've been together for 10 years. He must love me because we've been together for 12 years. He must love me because he put a ring on my finger. I never really got the verbal reassurance. And the more I go through therapy and the more therapy I've had surrounding this subject, the more I've realized that it is totally okay to actually vocalize the things that you need. Reassurance is one of those things that's just, hey, I'm having a really nice time with you, or I actually do want to see you again. You know, I've been really enjoying your company. Or just like a little text when somebody leaves after, you know, seeing you for a while. You spent the weekend with somebody. Hey, I had a really nice time with you. Those are the things that I need because I'm still trying to build my self-worth. Yes, I feel more confident than I've ever felt in my own skin, in my own body, everything. I have felt so confident with my feelings and my thoughts and everything like that. My self-worth is still being worked on. I still go to war with myself if I've done something and I think that was completely out of character for me. I still go to war with myself. I don't give myself grace sometimes. And I have been vocalizing more and more and more to my friends and to my family that my abandonment trauma is so deep rooted, and I was so embarrassed about it because I remember, you know, me sitting in my therapist's room quite early on saying like, I feel like a fraud. I feel like I shouldn't be here. I feel like, you know, oh, you know, your ex just left you. What's the big deal? And more I'm accepting that this is a trauma that is going to stay with me for the rest of my life. And it comes out in really random, bizarre ways. And the thoughts I have that are linked back to that trauma are wild. You'd never think that you would think in that type of way. And that is all with me building my self-worth and being totally okay with the fact that I have these triggers and being totally okay with actually vocalizing them and saying, this is how I deal with it. This is how I'm probably going to deal with it. I don't even say, is that okay? It's kind of like it or lump it, you know, because that's not going away. I can't just take a pill and magically, you know, oh, I didn't get abandoned. It doesn't work like that. And so you have to catch this voice, you have to label it, you have to replace it with your own. You have to get tough on yourself. If you honestly do not believe something that you're thinking about, then replace it with your own belief. Stupid things, not midweek drinking. That is a huge thing that came from COVID, with living at home with my ex, with nobody else around us for 2 years. My God, the pressures of that were huge. And I know that we were, if we actually think about it, a couple that did so well in COVID. And then I think a lot of my ex's thoughts and feelings were from the fact that his life went on hold for 2 years because he couldn't do anything. I couldn't do anything, but I coped with it well. He couldn't do anything and didn't cope with it that well. So we had like this thing of like not midweek drinking. I swear to God, when I used to pour a glass of wine on a Tuesday, bearing in mind, I'm a 32-year-old adult. When I poured a glass of wine on a Tuesday and I'd sit on my sofa watching TV, drinking wine because it was a Tuesday, his voice would be in my head. And it would be like, oh, we don't midweek drink. Says who? We do midweek drink because we're living by ourselves. We're an adult and I like rosé on a Tuesday, you know? And people will say like, you don't live together. You've not lived together for 3 years. And I'm like, no, I know that. But these things are instilled in me, these thoughts and beliefs. And it was almost like I could see him turn his nose up at me. He has no idea what I'm doing with my life. We're blocked on everything. He has no access to me. I have no access to him. We do not see what each other's what's going on in each other's lives. But he was there thinking, oh, do you midweek drink now? And I had to feel guilty and feel like, oh God, like he's fully going to be judging me. It is just insane. And these are the parts of breakups that people don't realize that you actually go through. They're one of the hardest things as well, like actually changing your beliefs around something because that's what your ex believed for such a long time is really, really difficult. And I know that I've spoken about like your routines and changing your routines and stuff, and I touch on this subject quite a lot, and I think I've done quite a few podcast episodes in the past which was like, you know, changing up your daily routine and stuff. But I'm gonna just touch on something that I've started telling a couple of my Patreon followers to do. Do things that you know that they would not approve of. I mean, don't go out and do things that you're uncomfortable doing, but certain things that you know that they would be like, oh, don't like that. I can hear his voice in my head. She goes out on a Friday and a Saturday locally drinking with her friends. Like, I can hear it. I can hear that in my head. Like, I can hear the judging. I can hear the turning his nose up because this is the life that I've decided to live. What they don't know is the reason why I'm staying so local these days and that I'm not off gallivanting around, you know, doing things is because I am saving to move out of this country. I am investing everything I have back into myself and my business. And that means that I have to start saying no to things. And that means that I do stay local. But also, on the flip side, you know, I've said that, you know, he might not even be saying that, but it is what goes through my head. But on the flip side, I'm so grateful that I have a group of friends that can go out every Friday and every Saturday because I'm being social and I value my friendships over everything. And I've got such a huge group of friends. And that is something that, you know, I've always had groups of friends, but since my breakup, I feel like, unfortunately, you know, he lost friends. I feel like I gained so many new friends, and I'm so, so grateful that I get to go out and be social whilst I'm saving money. I don't want to be flying off and going visiting loads of places because I don't know whether you know, but buying a property abroad is really expensive. And eventually that is the end goal. And if that is the end goal, if I'm not doing stuff to actually feed into that end goal, what is the point? What's the point of having that goal of wanting to own a property abroad when, you know, when I'm thinking, oh, actually, God, my ex would be thinking, gosh, she goes out every Friday and a Saturday. Well, yeah, I have the best time and I'm making the best memories. The other week, it was so funny. Me and my friends, Ross and Preston, went out, and I honestly woke up in the morning and me and Preston were laughing. Like, it was one of the funniest weekends we have ever had. Everyone goes, oh, you just do the same thing. Every night is different. And like, I'm going out this evening and I just know that it's not going to be the same as any other night out that we've had. It's going to be different and it's going to be hilarious, and the sun's out and it's going to be loads of fun. I started doing things that, you know, but I would advise you to do things that they wouldn't approve of. You know, go to the restaurant that they were like, oh, that's so overrated. Like, or go to somewhere where they're like, oh, I wouldn't eat there. Go there. Go and experience it. You might come away and think that was so overrated, but you've done it and you've like switched your belief of it. Wear the things and dress the way that they thought, oh, actually, like, I wouldn't go out in that. But he never made me think a certain way about my image. But I did think I needed to withhold a certain image. Definitely. I have always struggled with my body image. I've always struggled with my weight and how I look and how I feel. And that is something so not because of my ex. It's always just been instilled in me. He made me feel confident. However, when we split up and his new girlfriend, we're like the polar opposites, which I am truly grateful for. However, I always thought that he went for girls with body figures like mine. He always used to bang on about like me being like Kimmy K because I've got a big bum and loving curves and all the rest of it. And I would say that his type definitely switched, and I struggled a lot with that because I thought, was it because I wasn't like tiny and really skinny? And I always talk to my sisters about this because like we come from a very loving background and a mum who was very body confident. She was and my nan was confident with her curves, and I think I lost that a little bit, and I know that it made my sisters sad and it made my mum sad. And it's so weird because the other day I saw a picture of me and I'm like hollow. My face is hollow. My cheekbones. I don't have cheekbones because I have chubby cheeks here, but like my cheekbones are so prominent, and Mum said it was horrendous. And she said, the one thing I couldn't say to you is that you are too skinny, because she knows I've always battled with the body image that I've had, because I grew up in the 90s and the 2000s where, you know, skinny was fashionable. People like Katie Price were all over the tabloids, Victoria Beckham with her size 0. I grew up in a world where skinny was good, and it wasn't until I was like 20 where the Kardashians came on the scene and made curvy good. And I feel like, this is a completely different subject, but I feel like skinny and being skinny is coming back into fashion. And it does scare me, because especially when you struggle with your body image, and especially when things like Ozempic and the other one, Mounjaro, are so accessible now, it terrifies me that skinny is going to become fashionable again, because girls that are built like me have the bigger bum, the bigger thighs. It is quite mentally destroying. But that is a whole other subject in itself, and maybe something that I will talk on. I struggle to talk about my body image because I know it can be really triggering for people, and because I always get the classic like, oh, people would kill for your body. And I hear when people are saying that, but everybody fights their own demons, and that is a hill that I am willing to die on. Like, everybody has their own demons. So I try not to talk about body image and food and things like that, because I know it can be quite triggering, especially because it is triggering for me. And like I said, that didn't come from my ex. We used to have like a Chinese and a Domino's in one weekend. You know, he never really made comments about my weight, but I used to always say, you know, I want skinny legs, and he'd be like, well, get in the gym then. When realistically, like, my body figure and my body type doesn't allow me to have skinny legs, because I have the biggest bum ever and wide hips, you know. But start trusting your gut again. Start thinking like, no, do you know what? I don't have to do that. I'm going to do that on purpose because I know they wouldn't approve of it. Break the cycles. And it's not about revenge. This is not about revenge. This is about, you know, you reminding yourself that you can be fully you again. And how that looks, and how that looked to me, was a mystery, because I didn't know. I didn't know how to be fully me, because I'd never been an adult outside of a relationship. And it's scary. However, you can have a little bit of fun with it. Go to the places and go and speak to the people that they'd be like, oh, I don't want to do that. And it's so weird, because I can, even now, like, it has less and less impact on me. But even now, I can hear certain conversations that would take place. And I don't think about them very often because, you know, you can torment yourself. And I'm not saying these conversations have happened. I get fed information from people, and I know sometimes about, you know, his past comment about how I'm living my life, but the comments are in my head, and I just know that, you know, if I post on my Instagram and certain people see that I'm hungover again, I can just tell it's like, oh, she's hungover again because she's out partying. Yes, I am out partying again. Do you know why? Because I love it and I'm having the best time. And they don't know whether I'm hungover because I'm tired, or whether I'm actually hungover because, you know, I went out drinking. No one ever knows. And like I said, you go through stages on your Instagram of posting. You have to be social media present when you're single. I understand. You go through posting. Then you go through a stage where you're like, oh my God, get me off social media. I don't want to see anything. Then you come back to social media and you're like, oh, do you know what? It's not actually that bad. I'll just go private. And then you master the art of being public, posting, but also being super private. And maybe I'll talk about that on my Patreon, about the thought process that goes into posting on social media post breakup 3 years on. Maybe I'll do a little episode on that. But I just wanted to finish off by saying that, like, you are only human. The fact that you've picked up habits and thoughts and beliefs and things from another person is completely normal. It's so normal. You're not weak because you've picked these up. I spent a lot of time sat in a therapy room with my therapist saying, like, why did I never just say to him, can we do something that I want to do this weekend? Can you just walk around the shops with me without complaining? Can you just offer to take me for breakfast in the morning without me having to suggest it? You know, I didn't ask for a lot. I wanted for nothing. And I will say that I wanted for absolutely nothing. I just wanted him to know that, like, maybe I needed to do some things that were like aligned with what my hobbies were and what I wanted to do. And I always was made to feel like going for breakfast was just so cliche, like, oh, going for breakfast. When actually now, like, it is a love language of mine. Do you want to go get breakfast? Yes. Yes, I do. Where are we going? I'll be there half an hour before, looking at the menu. That's the person I am. But you're only human for absorbing that. And I know that on the flip side, he has probably had to unlearn certain things that I say. And I say this with chest, actually. I'm very influential on how I talk and what I say in phrases and stuff. For example, I think it took me 3 weeks to be in a boy friendship group where they were all saying stunning. You know, like, I had little words and little things and little phrases that I did, and I know that would have taken him a long time to unlearn, because he used to say certain things that my family used to say. We abbreviate things, and we had, like, not our own language, but we would say stuff, and he picked that up, and I know that it would have taken him a while to unlearn them. So, like, boot on the other foot, he probably went through it in a different way with certain things that he's taken out of the relationship. But you are not stuck, and you are not stuck in these thought processes. You are not stuck in these habits. You can break away from them. Every single day you get the opportunity to block the voice out, to say, hey, do you know what? This is old computing. Like, this is old habits, old beliefs. Like, you are able to get your voice back. It does come back. You do create new habits. You do get to the point where you are unapologetically doing things without having that voice in the back of your head saying to you, are you really going to do that? Or thinking, oh my God, my ex is going to judge me for this. It doesn't matter. I say a lot, like, you've gone from being like a couple and a team to literally being so separate. And it's horrible to think about it, but you probably don't even cross their mind in the day a lot. And it's so sad that we're the ones that are left with these thoughts and, like, the process of, like, what will they think if I do that? What will they think if I do that? It is unfair. However, you can work through it. There are things that you need to do, you know, write down how you think about yourself and the beliefs that you have. And are they your beliefs? Where have they come from? Do you want to change them? Work on that. You know, get it down in front of you. I always say that actually seeing it out on paper is the best thing, like, and it is the best thing and the best way to take action on making a change because these are the things, again, that people don't talk about when you go through a breakup. And some of the beliefs will stick, and some of the beliefs will stay, and some of the habits will stay. But, you know, like I said, in the winter, I don't get up at the crack of dawn because I don't need to. And I don't feel like I'm wasting the day, because I know that I'm getting the most out of my days, because my days are my days now. They're not as. There's no as in these days. They're just yours. Just one final note. You're not who they left. You're who you're becoming. And all these things that I've spoken about in this episode are completely normal. I don't want you to go away and think, oh my God, this isn't normal. It's completely normal. What you need to do is learn how to take action. And hopefully some of these episodes bring up little thought processes where you think, I actually do that. I actually remember that. I actually think that. And it isn't my voice, and I need to change that. That is the whole reason why I sit here, and it's the purpose why I do this week in, week out, because I want you to go away with something. And even if you take away one thing from one podcast episode, I've achieved everything what I wanted to achieve. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. If you're in the UK, I hope you have a glorious sunny weekend. Like I always say, if you follow my links, you can find the links to my Patreon, the links to my courses. If you need me, please reach out. If you want me to cover a topic that you're suffering with, let me know. As always, guys, look after yourself. Bye.